Doc Shadows, number 68, BTR 92166, Air 92866. Take one.
My name is Victoria Winters. An unexplained death has added more mystery to Widow's Hill and Collinwood, the great gloomy house on its crest. And it affects everyone in Collinsport. There is always the one question. Was it an accidental death?
No. Refer it to billing. That's their job. Right. Come in. Well, kitten. Come in.
Am I disturbing you?
Of course not. Delighted to see you. You can tell your mother that you actually caught me working.
I'll do that. I came in town for a reason.
Oh, you're not here just to spy on me, huh?
No. I had to talk to Burke Devlin.
Why?
He was saying horrible things about you. I've sort of defended him. You and Mother were so bitter about him, and he was never anything but nice to me. I guess I was wrong about him.
Burke is a very plausible liar. He's fooled people much more, experienced than you, my dear.
I don't know about that. But I do know that you were right about Burke's wanting to harm you any way he could.
You sound very serious.
I am. Uncle Roger, he actually thinks you killed Bill Malloy.
I can't even get angry about it, kitten. I knew Burke had it in for me, but I didn't know that he could be so stupid.
You didn't, did you? I mean, even accidentally.
Carolyn, how can you even ask a thing like that?
I couldn't help worrying.
Well, I'm glad you worried, but there was never any need to. I did not murder Bill Malloy. I did not kill him accidentally or any other way.
I was sure, but I wanted to hear you say it.
Well, I'd shout it from the housetops if I thought it would help. I suppose Mr. Devlin gave you all the gory details, how I managed to accomplish this feat when I was somewhere else at the same time.
You were somewhere else?
But of course, I was at home, and he knew it very well. Did he say how I did this? Did he have some valid reason for me committing this murder?
He says it's because Mr. Malloy discovered something that proved you guilty of the accident Burke was sentenced for.
I see. I'm not only a murderer, but a perjurer and a hit-and-run driver as well. I'm surprised he didn't add arson and high treason.
But why? Why would he say all these things?
My dear child, Burke is a man who has been tortured with a conscience for 10 years. He admits that he didn't even remember what happened the night of the accident.
I know, he said that. But he also says he's very sure he was not driving that car.
He was too drunk to remember anything. I was there, kitten. I wasn't drunk. Laura was there. Believe me, he was guilty. It was the most difficult thing in my life, to testify against him on that witness stand. But of course I had to tell the truth.
Naturally. And if you need an alibi for the other night, I'll swear I was home with you.
Well, thank you, kitten, but that won't be necessary. Our good Miss Winters knows that I didn't leave the house until 10 of 11. Too late to have accomplished this feat.
Well, in that case, you ought to be a little nicer to her. You've been giving her a rough time at Collinwood.
Oh, in what way?
You can be one of the most charming men in the world if you want to.
Well, I'd never thought about it that. Maybe it would be a good idea to charm Miss Winters.
It might even be fun. Now I think I'll see if I can't have some fun. I'm going to steal Joe away from the Collins factory long enough for lunch.
Well, then I've set your mind at rest. You don't think old Uncle Roger is a murderer, do you?
I think you're wonderful. David, where are you? David, where are you? All right, David. Come out, wherever you are.
If I really wanted to hide, you never would have found me.
It's still lesson time. How about getting back to history?
At school, we had recess.
What did you do then?
Played games.
What sort of games?
Stupid games.
Was this when you were living in Augusta?
Where else would it be?
Did you like living there?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't. That's all. My mother and father were fighting all the time. It was mainly his fault. He was always picking on her.
Well, I'm sure he didn't mean anything by it.
One time, I actually thought he was going to kill her.
David, don't exaggerate so.
I'm not exaggerating. It's the truth. I was in the next room. I could hear the whole thing.
Well, you shouldn't have been listening.
You couldn't help it. Could hear it a block away. It was breaking furniture and throwing things around. It's a wonder he didn't get arrested.
Well, maybe it just sounded worse than it was.
It couldn't have.
What was it about?
Burke Devlin.
Yes? Sheriff Patterson. Oh, yes, of course. Send him in.
Morning.
Good morning, George. Is this an official visit?
Sort of.
Well, sit down. Has Burke been shooting off his mouth some more?
Burke? No. As a matter of fact, he's willing to forget the whole thing.
What do you mean?
Well, he won't prefer charges against Matthew.
Against Matthew? What's Matthew done?
You mean to say you haven't heard about the fracas at the Blue Whale?
Nobody ever bothers to tell me anything. What happened?
Well, Matthew picked a fight with Burke Devlin.
Well, what was it all about?
I was hoping you'd be able to give me the answer to that.
Me? Well, this is the first I've heard about it.
You have no idea why Matthew would want to pick a fight with Burke Devlin.
He didn't like him, I guess.
Roger, he and Burke are interested in just one thing, Bill Malloy's murder. Now, Burke has already gone so far as to suggest that you killed Malloy.
So I've heard. This is the most ridiculous thing that I've heard him say since he's been out of prison.
Well, I can't disregard it.
And now I suppose he's accused me of hiring Matthew to stop these accusations.
No, he didn't say that, not in so many words, but the thought did occur to me.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, George. If I do hire anyone to kill Burke Devlin, it'll be someone with more sense than Matthew. I'll pick someone that I can trust to complete the job.
Well, Roger, I think that impresses me about as much as anything you might have said. I'm sorry to have troubled you.
No trouble at all, George.
By the way, did you have anyone in mind?
In mind? In mind for what?
Well, if you should decide to choose someone to finish the job for you.
No, George. But I rather, at the moment, prefer doing it myself.
That's what I figured.
If anyone needs me urgently, I'll be at home. Bye.
You must be mistaken. Why on earth would your mother and father be arguing about Burke Devlin?
They weren't arguing. They were fighting.
That was a long time ago.
I was 6 years old. I'm old enough to remember. It's like it just happened. And the minute I met Burke, I remembered the whole thing.
Well, anyway, I don't want you to repeat what you just told me to anyone else. It could make serious trouble for Burke, and you like him, don't you?
I sure do. He's my only friend in the whole world. Do you like Burke?
Yes, I do.
Does he like you?
Well, you'd have to ask him that. Right now, I don't think he thinks very much of me.
Why? What did you say?
I had to say something he didn't like.
Why?
Because it was the truth.
So you have to go and make trouble for Burke. Why couldn't you just keep quiet?
Because it could have hurt your father.
Who cares?
You don't really mean that.
I do, too. You know what you've got? You've got a big mouth.
David, don't be rude.
I'm not being rude. It's the truth.
David, I am sick and tired of your
Don't
nonsense.
you touch me. I was wrong before. You are a stranger. Just all you are is a stranger trying to make trouble for me and Burke.
That's not true.
It is, too. If Burke hadn't stuck up for me, I would have gotten in a lot of trouble. That's all you like to do is get me in trouble.
I can help you if you'll let me.
A lot of help you are. You try and blame me for trying to kill my father. Well, I didn't! I didn't!
David! David, stop that!
Here, what's going on?
She tried to hurt me.
That's not true, David.
How could a girl like Miss Winters hurt a big boy like you?
She did, I tell you, she did. I knew you'd be on her side.
How can I be on anyone's side when I don't even know what it's all about?
You don't have to. You're always ganging up on me, just like at school.
David!
Let him go, Miss Winters. Give him time to cool off. Actually, it was you I wanted to talk to.
Whatever you say.
Well, I was sitting in my office, twiddling my thumbs, and all of a sudden, a thought occurred to me. I haven't been very fair to you.
I haven't complained.
Well, that was part of my thought. Here you are in a strange place, in a strange situation, and I haven't done anything at all to make it easier for you. And that's what was bothering me. I realize now that if I had met you only halfway, things might have been much more pleasant in our relations.
Mr. Collins.
Now, don't argue, Miss Winters. I'm the one to blame, not you.
Well, I don't see that anyone's to blame.
Well, I insist. As long as I'm being noble about it, at least let me go first class. I must confess that part of the fact was that I never knew how to handle David, and I suppose I resented my sister thinking that a young girl could succeed where I failed. Perhaps you'd let me make it up to you and take you out to dinner one night.
Well,
Oh, there's some wonderful places along the coast where the lobster is delicious.
well, I've been waiting to have some of that ever since I got up here.
Good, then we'll do it. It's agreed?
Agreed. Mr. Collins.
Roger.
Roger. I think it would be nice for David to have some happy people around this house for a change.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that. I think we manage, everything considered.
Well, perhaps I shouldn't say this, but I'll do anything I can to try and understand David better. He told me that you and your wife had been arguing.
Well, that's nonsense. You know how he exaggerates everything.
Well, he had one very vivid memory. He said when he was 6 years old that he heard you and your wife arguing about Burke Devlin.
Well, we may have had words occasionally. Certainly when she insisted on bringing Devlin into it, then the words may have become louder than was prudent. I had no idea that David remembered. He was only a child.
He remembers all right. And it may be the reason for the hostility he shows.
Well, Miss Winters, Vicky, even if we were old friends, I don't think that I would go into a long discussion about the troubles that beset Laura and me.
I wasn't trying to pry or be nosy.
And now you're reminding me of something that I accused you of. I'm afraid you'll have to forgive me for that, too. I hope that your memory isn't as long as David's.
It's completely forgotten. And now, if you'll excuse me, I think I'll go and find him.
Oh, did you know Miss Winters was looking for you?
Yes. I thought you were going to call her Vicky.
Oh, my, you do have keen ears, don't you?
I thought you didn't like Miss Winters.
There's an old cliche, David. You can catch more flies with sugar than with vinegar.
What's that have to do with Miss Winters?
Well, nothing, my boy. I was just being nice to her in hopes that in return she might be a little nicer to you.
Why should you care? You never did before.
Well, it was only because I had so much in my mind. I've treated you badly, and I hope I can make up for it.
I didn't say those things about you and Mother.
Of course you didn't. I didn't believe it for a minute.
People are always blaming me for things I never did.
Well, that's because you're small and can't fight back.
Miss Winters is always making up stories about me.
Well, I don't doubt it. People usually lie when they have inadequacies of their own.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, if a person is at fault, he or she, as the case may be, will lie to cover that fault.
That must be what Miss Winters does. Why don't you fire her?
Oh, but Aunt Elizabeth likes her here.
What if she did something Aunt Elizabeth didn't like?
Well, I don't see how she could do that. She's a paragon of virtue. She could do nothing wrong.
But Aunt Elizabeth might think she did.
Don't tell me about it, David. Just don't tell me about it.
Hi. Well, you look like you just lost your last friend.
Maybe I have.
Oh, it can't be that bad.
Can't it? First I quarreled with Burke Devlin. So I thought I'd let Joe Haskell cheer me up.
That sounds like a good remedy.
I wanted him to take me to lunch, but he wasn't at the cannery. He had to go on some stupid errand.
Oh, you're not blaming him for that, are you?
Well, he might have known I'd want to see him.
Carolyn, you're funny.
If I'm so funny, why aren't I laughing? I'd just as soon never see Joe again. He's such a square.
I thought you were going to marry him.
You think I'm going to marry him. Mother thinks I'm going to marry him. He thinks I'm going to marry him. Everybody thinks so, except me.
And most of the time you do, too.
But this is not one of those times.
Hello? Oh, hi, Joe. Oh, you just got back and got Carolyn's message. Well, I'll tell her. Oh, wait a minute, Joe. She just came in the door. Hold on.
Yes, Joe, did you want something? Dinner. Well, yes, I'd love it. Yes, I do, too. Girl has a right to change her mind, hasn't she? Speaking of that, I think I'll change my dress.
I thought your date was for dinner.
I think we'll have dinner in the middle of the day.
So you see, David, when all of these personal matters are cleared up, you'll find that I'm quite a different person. I'm really very easy to get along with.
It was bad enough before Miss Winters came.
Well, I know, and I was to blame for that. I haven't paid you much attention. But you have to understand, it was because of the new job and new surroundings and suspicious people.
Like Miss Winters.
Exactly. I know you don't care very much for me, David. And as I said, it was my fault, but if you had a choice, who would you rather be rid of? Me or Miss Winters? That's a difficult question to answer, isn't it? But just think it over. If you had your choice, who would it be? Me or Miss Winters?
Stay tuned for Where the Action Is next on ABC. Dark Shadows is a Dan Curtis production.
We're slating.
Dark Shadows, number 69.